Hello friends, and welcome back to another video, and welcome back to my bookshelf, because today we're talking all things books. Now, I wasn't going to do this. I wasn't sure if anyone would care what I read last year. However, it turns out when I did a poll on Instagram, a lot of you wanted to know and wanted me to go through my reading wrap up for 2024. Now, compared to last year, this was not my best reading year. I went into 2023 on maternity leave and breastfeeding and being up all night long. So I spent a lot of time on my Kindle in 2023. Whereas 2024, I went in as a business owner, still a mum, still parenting a lot, and also just had a lot going on. And so it was just a little bit chaotic. I did not read as many books for 2024, but I am back on my reading grind in 2025. So this year's reading wrap up, I think, will be epic. But yeah, I don't know. My 2024 reading year was a little bit weird, but I'm going to get out my Goodreads and I'm going to start from, I'm going to go in order in which I read the books. And honestly, I read some really good books still, so I'm excited to talk about them. If you're new here, hi, my name is Kirsty. I'm 28, I live in Adelaide with my little family. I have 2 toddlers and my husband, and we have an Australian Kelpie dog, Ziggy. So if you hear dog barking in the back, I'm really sorry. There's not much I can do about it, unfortunately. He really just doesn't care. But I read 33 books in 2024, which compared to the 69 I read the year before, seems like nothing. So I don't know, it feels weird. I'm like, oh, I didn't read that many. We'll go through what I read. Now I'm gonna clump some of these together because they're a series. I started 2024 reading the Runaway series by Devney Perry. I'm a huge Devney Perry fan. I think her books are so digestible. There's 2 series that I haven't got into, but most of what I've read by her I have absolutely loved. I think the series that I've not loved as much, or the books that I've started that I haven't got through from her earlier work, but her new stuff, the Runaway series, it was 4 or 5 books. I read a couple at the end of last year and then some at the start of 2024, and I loved them. It was about 5 books, and it's about this group of people who they were all living in a junkyard together as teenagers, and then they all obviously, once they turned 18, they all split and had their own life. And so it was so interesting because then each book focused on a different person from that time, and the first book starts with someone basically getting back the car that they used to sleep in, and she wants to road trip from where she is. I'm pretty sure she was in New York, and it needs to get back to LA. So each book is then in a different state as they sort of do, they pass on the car. So she takes it to one person who's in a small town, and then she gives it to someone else who then moves on, and it goes through all of the characters, and it's just really, really cool. Very fun concept. I really enjoyed it, and I highly recommend. Super easy to read, less than 300 pages per book, just super easy. Small town for some of them, found family, just beautiful books. And so I read 3 of them. I read Quarter Miles, Forsaken Trail, and Dotted Lines in 2024. Then I read When in Rome by Sarah Adams. Now, I had only read 1 or 2 books by Sarah Adams previously, and I didn't love. However, this I love. It was so cute. Small town romance again. It was about a pop star, Ray Rose, who moves into a small town and basically hopes that no one recognizes her. She changes her name. She's not in her stage makeup vibe, and she wants to just escape for a little while. And she ends up falling for the baker, basically. So it's pop star meets small town guy. Very wholesome, very cute. Just cozy vibes. I don't even know how to explain it more than that without ruining anything. But just good vibes, small town, found family, stunning. You know what I mean? And then I also, later on in the year, but I'll clump these together, I then read Practice Makes Perfect, which is the second book in that little interconnected series. So the main guy from When in Rome, it's about his sister. And yeah, small town romance. It's her and a bodyguard. She is a florist, super, super intimidated by love. I feel like she just has never really had any good experiences and basically thinks that she's going to be forever alone. So she has no confidence. They do fake dating, and it's just a good time. Again, small town vibe, right up my alley, was just good. Quality, I think I rated both of the book 4 stars, and I just had a really good time with them. I feel like I read a lot of 4-star books in 2024. Not many new 5 stars, but a lot of 4 stars. But it was just good and cutesy, love, such a good time. Then I read Hooked by Emily McIntyre, and I don't even really know how to explain this book, but it's not really my vibe, and I will not be reading the rest of the series. However, I do understand that it would be some people's vibe. Now, these are so this is a series, it's the Never After series. They are all standalones, but same vibe. So they are fairy tale reimaginings. This is a Peter Pan reimagining, so they have the names and the vibes of the people in Peter Pan, but it's not the fairy tale, if that makes sense. And this is kind of dark romance, I would say, and I don't know, there was a BookToker that I saw who was absolutely raving about these, and so she influenced me. She did her job. Big shocker. And I didn't really like it. Just wasn't my cup of tea. It was a little bit too dark, too icky, too lusty. Just none of it really tickled my fancy. It wasn't really the vibe of what I like to read. So I think I gave this a 2.5 star. But I do understand the hype around them, because I think like I can understand if you're into that sort of like darker themes, then this would be fun. But it was dark in the way of like violence and like shooting people and like, taking control. And I didn't love the romance at all. And like the romance was then with Hook. So I don't know, it was just really interesting. Not my vibe personally, but it was an okay read. I then read a book by Catherine Cowles. Now, Rachel Catherine, my good friend, she talks about Catherine Cowles the same way we talk about Devney Perry. Easy, small town romance, Eden's vibe, very comparable is what I had heard from Rach. So I was like, okay, I love Devney Perry, so I'll give Catherine Cowles a go. I read Tattered Stars, which is the first book in her Tattered and Torn series, which is a bit of a, in comparison to Devney, which I think some of Devney Perry's books have this, but not all of them. Catherine Cowles' books are more of a suspense romance. There's romance, small town romance, often found family or often interconnected standalones of family members. However, yeah, a little bit more crime in the background, or like a mystery in the background, a little bit more suspense. And I didn't love Tattered and Torn. It wasn't bad, like I ended up reading it. I think it was the wrong timing for me, if I'm honest, when I picked it up. Like I was kind of having a really shit time when I read it, and that I think maybe hindered my experience, because I this year read another book by her and really enjoyed it. So I'm not 100% sure on my reasoning for why I didn't love it, because now that I think back, like the story was good. I liked the premise. It was about a girl, and she basically is kind of enemies to lovers. A girl is returning to a small town where she has a bit of a history basically, and she basically goes back expecting everyone, knowing that everyone might hate her, but there's a specific reason she's come back, and then the person that she ends up falling for, there's like reasons why they shouldn't be together, so it's kind of enemies to lovers. Like, it's good, but I wasn't drawn at the time to pick up the next book in the series. So I might continue the series at some point, but currently it's not very high on my TBR list. But I did start another series by the same author, and I've really enjoyed it. So yeah, I don't know, I gave it a 3 star, so take that as you will. It was, however, and remember, a very easy read. Then I jumped into a weird time in my book reading journey, where I chose really big books that were really heartbreaking. And I started with A Little Life. I did vlog a lot of me reading this, because look how big it is. This book is, it's like not as many as I thought with like the size of it. It's 720 pages, but the font is tiny, like teeny tiny font. And this book broke me. I feel like there's no other words for it other than it broke me. It was also really hard to read. I didn't really enjoy my reading experience, but I don't know what else to rate it other than like a 5 star. But not because I enjoyed it, but because of what the story was. It's basically, this book revolves around 4 graduates. They all live in New York, and they all just have, it's a very found family. They all like went to college together, and then you sort of just follow their life, and that's kind of it. It's kind of like a character study, I feel like, and you just learn a lot about these people. And the main character, Jude, basically just had like a really traumatic life, and none of his friends knew about it, and none of his friends were ever like a part of any of it. And there's like, oh my god, I'm gonna cry. Like, his friends just have no idea like what he's been through. They know that he had a hard upbringing, but he's never spoken about it. But you get all of the information, and you go back in time and experience it with him, and it's like horrendous what this boy goes through, and like the abuse he deals with, and it's just like really horrible, and it's heartbreaking, and it's really hard to read, and it's not joyful much at all, and it's really hard to read in the way that like sometimes it feels like nothing is happening, but the words are quite, like I felt quite dumb reading it, because like nothing was really happening. I don't know how to explain that, but like I just felt quite dumb reading it a lot of the time, and it was just sad and horrible, but had amazing messaging. I think about it still all the time, and it's been like 10 months since I read it, and I feel like it's gonna live with me forever. So like, although I don't recommend this because it's like really heartbreaking and really horrible and just like not enjoyable, it's also very important. So I don't know where that leaves us, to be honest. Read it if you really want to, I guess. What came next? Then read the Happily Ever After playlist by Abby Jimenez. I really loved it. It was a book I listened to on audio. I accidentally read these out of order, but I read this book first, even though I should have read it second because it's a two-part, like interconnected standalone book series. But yeah, I read the Happy Ever After playlist first, which was, yeah, a bit backwards, but basically she finds a dog on the side of the road, ends up taking him in, tries to call the owner, hears nothing back, and basically for 2 weeks doesn't hear back from the owner, so decides to keep this dog, and then eventually he calls back and it goes from there. It's very much just like a silly, goofy rom-com vibe. It was just what I needed at the time, and I just love the way Abby Jimenez writes. Like, there's something about her writing style which just draws me in. I don't really read many rom-coms, but I loved this. I gave it a 4-star, devoured it, highly recommend. I then read, I'm gonna put both of these together because although I didn't read them right after another, I read them as they came out. I read Blitz by Devney Perry. This is the second book in her Treasure State Wildcat. I loved this. I really like this series. They're really fun. This one was a coach and a student romance, so a little bit saucy, but it was just really good fun. Like, I just really enjoyed this. I gave this a 4-star again, and it was like them sneaking around because it was like forbidden romance because student coach vibes. They were both really terrified they were gonna get in trouble, blah blah blah. Not overly ethical, but I really liked Torrin, the main guy. Like, he was just really funny. And then later in the year, like, I'm now going a bit out of order, but just makes sense to keep books in a series together, you know. I then read Rally, which was the third book in the Treasure State Wildcats series, and this one I think was my favorite out of them so far. This one is about one of the players, because they're all sports romance, by the way. Sorry, I didn't explain that very well. Small town Montana, sports romances. It all revolves around the football team in a university, basically. So the first book, Coach, was part of it as well. I read that in 2023, and then Blitz came out, and then Rally came out, and then there's another one to come out in 2025. But this I really loved. I don't know what it was about Rush Ramsey, but I loved him. Main character in this book. I loved him. And Faye, the female main character, it's an accidental pregnancy, which I actually really love. I find them really fun, and it was done really well. And I think it was one of those things where, like, they hook up at the very start as an accidental pregnancy do, but they have no idea who each other are. And like, he is like a major football star. Everyone who is into football is like obsessed with him. He is like the top dog, and she has no idea who he is. They sleep together. She then obviously finds out she's pregnant, then realizes who he is, and it's like, oh dear, they're from very different backgrounds, very different families. It's just so good. And again, I just love the way Devney Perry writes is so easy to digest. She's like, I just love them. Like, they're just so easy. I gave both of these a 4-star and just like froth them, to be honest. And I'm really happy to have them on my bookshelf. My goodness, this year must have gone forever because I can barely even remember this. But I also then read Divine Rivals this year. I swear it feels like this was last year. I didn't mind this. It wasn't my favorite. I love the concept of it, but I got a little bit bored at times. Basically, the concept of this book is that both the male and female main character are writers, and they write for like a newspaper or something like that. They both have like these magic typewriters that they realize once they write on it, it sends off and it goes to each other, but they don't know it's going to each other. So then the letter is like ends up under their door, and so they're like pen pals without realizing who they're talking to. They just know that someone else in the world has one of these magic typewriters, but they never use their names in them. And so they learn all these things about each other whilst being enemies, because they're like rivals at the company that they work at. Like, they hate each other and don't get along, but then kind of have a romance going on through these letters. And then it's like set in quite an old time, and so then there's like war and all of these things, and it was like okay. I think I went in with really high expectations because, again, Rach, who we have very similar book taste, she absolutely loved this, and so did some of our friends. So I just kind of expected I would also love it, and I have to remind myself sometimes that like I don't love all the books that my friends love, and that's okay. So this was like fine. I enjoyed it enough. I think I gave it a 3-star. It was like low fantasy, which is good. Like, low fantasy is good because I'm not that into fantasy, but it was like nice. I think I'll read the second one at some point, but I'm not in a huge rush. I then read this weird little interconnected series on Amazon. They were on Kindle Unlimited. So I read The Exception to the Rule, which is by Christine Lauren, and The Worst Wingman Ever by Abby Jimenez. They're Amazon original short stories, and they were just like, I needed something not serious and very short to just like get through, and they were like okay. I don't remember what either of them were about, to be completely honest. One of them I think was someone got stuck in like a solarium bed or like a massage pool, like one of those float pool things, and it was like the guy that saved her was really, like, that's who she ended up with the romance. I don't remember them very well. Oh, and also, sorry, Rosie and the Dreamboat by Sally Thorne. There was 3 of them. I don't really remember any of them. They were okay. Not my favorite, but easy to get through, I guess. And then comes one of my only 5 stars of the year. I took an unintentional break, so I apologize if anything looks different, but it's like hours later because I had to charge my camera. But I then went into Magnolia Park's Into the Dark. This was a 5-star for me. One of my only 5 stars of the year. Perfect, incredible, beautiful, stunning, everything. This is the 5th book in the Magnolia Parks universe, 3rd book of Magnolia and BJ, and the final one. If you do not know the lore of Magnolia Parks, basically high society London, Gossip Girl vibes. This one was the end of Magnolia and BJ's story, and it was just perfect. There's no other word I can use. There's grief, there's talk of eating disorders, so I would check in on the trigger warnings before opening this one. I feel like it's a lot more triggering than the other ones, but I loved it. Chef's kiss, nothing more to say about it, to be completely honest. Then A Whole New World I was introduced to, and I read Binding and Keeping 13. These are high school students, YA, people with not, like, a girl with not a very good socio-economical background and the captain of the football team, basically, rugby team. I can't remember what sport he does, but it's like very found family, really heartbreaking, really triggering, lots of violence, like domestic abuse, those sorts of things. I understand the hype now with these. I have not yet got to the next books, mainly because I listened to these on audio, and the same people do the audio for those characters that did these characters, and it really put me off, so I'm gonna have to properly physically read them instead. But love these. 4.5 stars roughly. Incredible, heartbreaking. Even though they are so long, they're like, I don't know, 800 pages each, I could not get enough. But this is what I mean, like, I've read big books this year, you know what I mean? But they were amazing. Loved them, wanted to listen to them at all times, could read more of these characters. So that doesn't tell you anything. After reading, you know, 1600 pages of them, I was happy to read more. I feel like that says all it needs to. I then read the 4th book in the Windy City series. I loved this. I've loved this whole series. These are set in Chicago, sports romance. This one is Kennedy and Isaiah, and it's just amazing. Honestly, again, not much more I can say other than I loved this. This was another like 4.5 star. I love this series. Lots of found family. Again, can you tell what kind of books I enjoy? Yeah, just loved. This was perfect. There wasn't much I didn't like about it. I flew through it and it was just really beautiful. So highly recommend. Play along. I recommend the entire Windy City series, starting with Mile High, Right Move, Caught Up. They're all amazing. They were some of my favorites last year. This is one of my favorites this year. Then came Funny Story by Emily Henry. I feel like I have a slightly different relationship with Emily Henry than the diehards. I like her stuff. It's great. Probably like a 4-star for me. I really enjoyed this story, but not a 5-star for me. I feel like people are obsessed with Emily Henry's writing, and I really do like it. She's definitely got just like a very specific way of writing characters and making them feel so real, which I love. This, I don't know if part of it's because I hate the name Daphne, and that's the main character's name. Basically, Daphne and Miles. Daphne was engaged, got left at the altar. Miles, his girlfriend, broke up with him, and their partners broke up with each other to be together, and so they end up living together. And basically it goes from there. They basically are just like roommates who then their exes are together. And it's like really good. I loved it. I read it really quickly, but it wasn't a 5-star for me, if that makes sense. I don't know. I would recommend this to anyone. Like, it was great. Rom-com vibe, very funny, bit goofy, silly. Really did enjoy, but I feel like other people loved it more. I don't know if that makes sense. I was expecting it to be a 5-star, you know? But still great. Highly recommend. Then a 5-star came, and I read Honeybee whilst I was in Bali, and this is one of the best books I've read this year. 5-star, incredible, unreal. Everyone should read it. Life-changing. It is about a person called Sam. Sam goes to a bridge and wants to end their life, and when they are there, they meet someone else who is standing doing the same thing. The story goes from there. They have a very interesting friendship, and the story is just incredible. I actually went into this completely blind, and I'm really glad I did, and I highly recommend you do the same. So I'm not going to say much more on this book other than 5-star. Please put it on your 2025 TBR list. I highly, highly recommend. I then read The Match by Sarah Adams. I listened to it as an audiobook. Very silly, very goofy. It was like a 3.5-star book. It's like classic rom-com. It was about a girl who has epilepsy and has a service dog, and then she runs a company that helps other people with epilepsy get guide dogs, like service dogs. And then a little girl needs a service dog. She meets the dad. They have a really terrible first introduction, and then things go from there. It was really good, really easy to fly through, just like a good listen. Like, I highly recommend the audiobook. It was just, do you know what I mean? I then also read The Enemy by Sarah Adams, which is the next book after The Match, like interconnected standalones, although they have literally nothing to do with each other. And I didn't, well, there was a sibling connection. But I didn't enjoy it as much. It was still good, but it was like childhood enemies to lovers, and it just wasn't very believable for me. I didn't love that. So it was like a 3-star. It was okay. It was easy to listen to because I listened to that one as well. It was like fine, but nothing groundbreaking, you know? I then also listened to Showing Up by Ned Brockman. If you guys are not aware, I'm a big Ned Brockman fan. Love what he does and really loved his book. I love listening to autobiographies, and he narrated it, and it was really good. Basically about his life, his run across Australia, and what he plans to do in the future. So if you're wanting something to be inspired by, then I highly recommend Showing Up by Ned Brockman. I then read Sunlight and Crossroads, or I think it was Crossroads then Sunlight, by Ebony Perry once again. Again, one of my favorite authors. This is a duo, small town romance. They live on a ranch. Absolutely stunning. I gave these like 4.5 stars each. I just love them both. The books follow a brother each finding love, basically. A second chance romance, so a little girl who used to go and visit the ranch every summer then comes back to the ranch when they're grown up, and they have a really fun little love story. They bump into each other, have a thing, and it turns out that he is her new boss because she is just moving to the town. So both just really good. I highly recommend. Super easy to read. They're both quite short, like less than 300 pages, and I just flew through them. Loved them. Would not recommend them more. I then read some more Abby Jimenez. I read Part of Your World, and I also read Just for the Summer. Last year I read Yours Truly, which is actually the book in the middle of these. Again, another interconnecting standalone series that I didn't read in order. I'm not doing very well with this with Abby Jimenez books, but this I gave a 5-star last year. These I also just frothed. They were so good. This I gave a 4-star. This is a hang on, my memory card's about to run out. Please hold. She is basically being convinced to stay and be a surgeon, but she doesn't want to live with her ex-husband, so she moves to a small country town, meets the guy, they fall in love, you know, as expected. And it's just stunning. I don't know what it is about them, but they're just really good together. And then this was the third book. This one came out closer to the end of the year, just for the summer, and I absolutely frothed this as well. This was about 2 friends, and they do travel nursing work around America. So every like 6 weeks they move somewhere else and they work and they live, and that's how they've always been living. She ends up getting in contact with this guy because she is pretty sure she's cursed, because everyone she dates, the next person they date ends up finding the love of their life. This guy puts on Reddit that he has the same curse. And so they start just like being pen pals and chatting, and then they end up working at the town that he lives at. And it's just so good. They then decide to do like a fake dating situation where they're like, okay, well, if we date, surely we'll counteract each other and end up finding the love of our life. I don't know, it was just a fun, silly, goofy time, and I loved it, and it was so good, and it was so fun, and I highly recommend. I think I gave this one a 4.5. Like, I loved it. And I just love the way that Abby Jimenez writes. She just has something about her writing style, and I have really enjoyed her books this year. This one obviously the year before, but I just love them, and I highly recommend. I then read all 3 of the books in the Rebel Blue series, and these are also so good. So I started with Done and Dusted, and then Swift and Saddled, and then Lost and Lassoed came out right at the end of the year, and these are just so good. Small town, ranch vibe. Ranch? Is that the right way of saying that word? It always sounds really twangy coming out of my mouth. Small town, obviously. Found family. There is a Done and Dusted has a off-limits trope, a childhood friends to lovers, I guess. Like brother's best friend vibes. So these I absolutely love. I ate it up. They're just so sweet together, and both just have like very big reasons for why they don't want to find a partner, if that makes sense. And it was so good. So highly recommend that. Then second was workplace romance again. So Ada is coming to work for West, and obviously doesn't want to fall for him because he's her boss. She's there on a contract to do a renovation with him, but things happen, you know. Again, it was just so good, and the chemistry was just amazing. And then the final one that's out so far, I believe the next one is coming out sometime early 2025, but Lost and Lassoed I think was my favorite because the characters, Teddy is best friends with Emmy, who's the girl from the first book, and you just get to know her throughout the other 2 books, and so I was really excited to know what her story was going to be. Like, I already loved her before I read her book, if that makes sense, because she just seemed really cool. And so she basically loses her job, and Gus, who is Emmy's brother from the first book, he has a child, but he's not with the mum. They have a really good co-parenting relationship, but she is then going away, and so he needs a babysitter, and so Teddy comes to the rescue and comes to like nanny for them. And I love kids in books. I love single dad trope. They just get me. Single dad trope like gets me so much. And then yeah, like nanny relationships, because then she spent so much time with the kid and so we got to know the kid really well and it was just really sweet and I loved it. And watching their relationship go from like not really liking each other, like low-key enemies to lovers, they'd always kind of not liked each other, but there was like tension, to then having this relationship was just so beautiful. So they were amazing. I loved them so much and I highly recommend. If you haven't already, pop the Rebel Blue series on your wish list for 2025. And I think that's everything I read in 2024. I had kind of like, I didn't have a good reading year in the way that I didn't read as much as I wanted to, but everything I read was pretty good. Like, I enjoyed everything I read, which is truly the whole point in reading. It doesn't really matter how many books you read in a year as long as you're having fun with it. And yeah, I read some epic books this year and I'm super stoked. So that's pretty much my 2024 wrap up. They're all the books that I loved and that I recommend, or the ones that I maybe don't recommend as much. On my TBR for 2025, I'm feeling really excited. There's a lot of series that I want to finish. I really want to finish Eden's series by Devney Perry. I just have Sable Peak to finish because I just haven't gotten around to it because I read the others on my Kindle and this is not on Kindle Unlimited, so I haven't read it yet. But I really want to know his story, so I need to get to it. I also got for Christmas the first 2 books in the Rose Hill series by Elsie Silver, so I really want to read these. High on my list. I have started reading the second book in the Naturals series, Killer Instinct. I read the Naturals, where I read the Naturals last year. Was it the year before? Surely not. Oh my god, it must have been the year before. Wow. Hey, when did I'm gonna have to find out when I read that. I read the Naturals, must have been 2023, and I never picked it back up and I don't know why. I think the first book just didn't hook me enough, but I got the second and the third and the fourth for Christmas and I started reading the second and I'm hooked. So these, I know that I'm going to finish them basically in January or February, but these are like top of my 2025 TBR list. I also want to read the last book in the Chestnut Springs series. I've read all of the others except this one, mainly because everyone has told me it's not as good and everyone had really high expectations and their expectations were not met. So I'm a bit stressed about it, but I'm excited as well to just finish the series, you know? I'm very excited to read Onyx Storm this year. Very high on my list, will definitely get read. I also want to read the rest of the Boys of Tommen books. They're really high on my list as well this year. Would love to read Love Redesigned by Lauren Asher. I did not enjoy her Lakeside Billionaire series, so I'm hoping that I like this better, but I guess we will see. Also, Hannah Bonham Young's next book is coming out this year, which I'm so excited for, Out of the Woods. I will for sure be getting that as soon as it's released. Very excited for that. I also actually, it wasn't on my thing. Why do I feel like I haven't got everything? But I also did a reread of Brightside. It's one of my favorite books of all time, so I highly recommend. It was really good. I also really want to get to, I don't think you can see, the Seven Sisters series by Lucinda Riley. My mother-in-law actually gifted that for me for Christmas last year and I haven't got around to it yet, but I do really want to read that series as well. However, lots of really big books intimidate me, so we shall see. What else do I want to read? I really want to read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow still. I want to read the rest of the Sparrow Falls series that I started reading by Catherine Cowles. I really want to read the Light Lark series, actually. That's like YA fantasy, like magic school vibes, and I really want to read that. I actually downloaded a sample of it on my Kindle and I really enjoyed it, so I'm gonna get that soon. I think it would be really good to read that series. Emily Henry's got a new book coming out this year, which I'm sure will be great, and I will read it. The next book in the Rebel Blue Ranch series, when that comes out, Wild and Wrangled, I'll be reading that this year. What else is on my want to read list? I really want to read Icebreaker by Hannah Grace. Apparently it's really good. I really would love to read that trio. Lessons in Chemistry, I've heard really good things again. Like, it's kind of been like brought back up lately, and so I'm kind of intrigued by Lessons in Chemistry. Pictures of You by Emma Gray, I keep seeing it in the shops and it looks really interesting, so I would love to get my hands on that. Say You'll Remember, which is the next Abby Jimenez book that's coming out this year. I'm super excited for that. Saving Noah by Lucinda Berry, my friend has told me to read that. I don't know anything about it. She said it was really deep. That's all I know, so I'm definitely intrigued to read that. A novel love story. I really, you know what I do need to do this year is read the Powerless series by Lauren Roberts, because I know that they're supposed to be amazing. I've heard really good things, but I haven't got around to reading it yet, as well as Once Upon a Broken Heart trilogy. I have them, haven't read them yet. I really need to. I would really like to read Project Hail Mary. I think that's a series. I really like sci-fi, but not like crazy sci-fi, but I think I would enjoy that. Yeah, I think that's probably it. Oh, and the book that Jessa Hastings is bringing out, I can't remember what it's called, but will probably read that when it comes out. So I think that's everything I need to yap about regarding books. Let me know if you want me to do any specific book content this year. I will bring it back if people want to see it. I just don't want to talk books if no one cares. I mean, I love talking books, but like I can talk books with my friends without having to take the time to edit and upload it if no one's going to watch. But if people want the book content, I'll keep bringing it because I do love making it, but just like around vlogging and other things that I do, it's like a lot of extra work if no one cares, if that makes sense. So if you want me to continue making book content, please let me know and I will do that. Let me know what your TBR is this year. Let me know your favorite reads of 2024 and anything I need to put on my 2025 TBR. And thank you so much for listening because I've just yapped for so long about books. Considering I only had 30 something books that I read in 2024, I managed to talk about them for a long time. So if you're still watching, thank you so much. I appreciate it more than you'll ever realize. And yeah, I'm really excited for 2025. I'm fully back on my reading bandwagon. I've read 3 books of 2025 already and we're on like the 7th. So we're really making a comeback and I'm very excited for it. So I would love to do monthly wrap-ups again if that's what people are interested in, or reading vlogs, or whatever you're in the mood for. So let me know if you're wanting any book content, anything specific, let me know. And I will see you in my next video, which will be very, very soon. Thanks so much for watching. Bye!